Welcome once again to Strategy to Action. Of course, our main facilitator is Dr. Keita Demming. Dr. Demming, welcome once again. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me. How are you doing, sir?
I am fine, thank you, and your good self.
I'm good. I'm good. Always
All right,
look
let's
forward to
just
these
recap.
conversations.
Excellent. Looking at what we've covered so far, so we get a sense of where we are. We started with balancing business and personal life, how you run your business without it running you in the context of effective communication. And you have stressed all through our previous 4 episodes the importance of communication in the business world and in your personal life. Second topic, strategy versus execution, finding your strengths. Third, continuous strategy, making it an ongoing conversation. Fourth, prioritizing conversations in your organizations. Fifth, growth and conversations and key factors. And sixth, client and staff pain points, addressing challenges. If we could just recap a bit of the last topic we covered, clients and staff pain points. What does that mean? And then we go into our seventh and substantive topic today, which is company vision and blind spots, finding clarity. So let's go back, just a bit of a recap to clients and staff pain points. What are the differences in clients and staff pain points in the organization and addressing those challenges?
And so every company would have different client and staff pain points, but I think one of the things that's emerging in today's business world is that we're more attentive to all of the different stakeholders we have in whatever organization we are. So before, the only stakeholder people cared about really was the shareholder. Today, we're way more conscious that the stakeholders include the employees, the communities in which employees live, the suppliers, the shareholders, and vendors. And each of them has a different need, a value, a want, and they all have different pain points. If you think about a company like Apple, they don't make the iPhone or anything like that. They have an ecosystem that helps them create these products. And part of that is being very clear on what's the pain point of the other person who's helping solve a problem for you. So one of the things you learn in supply and demand is that I think companies that squeeze the other company to give them the lowest price and product, eventually their products become inferior because they're not paying people who are building their products enough to build a superior product. So the pain points of each person is different, but we have to be very conscious of what they are and how they play into the overall business model that we're working in. The most obvious one is employees. What do employees care about? And I think for what most of us think about is if we incentivize people with more pay versus in today's world, what's a cause worth fighting for? What's the purpose of us having a company? What problem are we solving? And that is where you get a lot more bang for your buck than trying to think about traditional ways of running things.
Interestingly enough, following our conversations, we were about the importance of conversations and that as a pain point in the organization. I had the honor of being a committee member on a master's thesis where a student focused on what were the main motivation and demotivation factors of a particular company. And the top one that came up, the most highly rated one, was the issue of a lack of communication in the organization in many different spheres. So let's talk about that a bit because very often, as you said earlier on in our previous episodes, there is an underestimation of the importance of effective communication and effective conversations in any organization.
So I would say I would put that a little bit differently. We talk about the three best practices that every organization has to. Sorry, the three best practices of high performing organizations. The mission is widely shared, widely known, widely believed. You have engaged stakeholders, and you start from the outside in. Often, when people talk about communication, and I'm dealing with this with a client right now, he's not exactly the best communicator. And the thing that people are complaining about most is like we don't know what's happening next. Decisions are coming from left and right, and we don't know where they're coming from. That goes right back to the mission is widely shared, widely known, widely believed, and you involve people in part of the decision making process as a way of getting buy-in. And that's not a superficial or performative involving, that's a genuine involving people in decision making process so that they are bought into what you're doing, so that they do feel like they have a stake in the company. One of the fastest growing areas of interest for me is employee ownership companies. So employee ownership companies, they are these companies who are giving employees ownership in the company and giving them a stake in the company, giving them say. That's a way of creating wealth for the employees that they have, and it's a way of creating way more buy-in in terms of the end product. Because what they know is if I have a really engaged staff, employee, etc., I'm going to get the results I'm going to get and the profits I'm going to make are far going to exceed. Let's say we're going at 7% versus 14%. 14% growth versus 7%. In 7% you double in 5 years. 14% you double in 3 years. And then you're giving employees part of that benefit, and then you're still benefiting from it. So it's a way of thinking about the way we do business that's very relational and very almost more fair and equitable. And I don't like using those words because they end up being quite loaded and falling into the activist space. But when we look at what makes a company a high achieving or high performing companies, it's those basic things like to what extent do I feel like I have control over my work? To what extent do I feel like I'm making a difference in the work that I'm doing and by showing up here in the world? And then there are lots of examples of that.
Would that be able to translate to how much do I feel my sense of agency or my sense of value is communicated to me, and and have that sense in the organization?
Yeah, so it's not about communicating value to you. It's about, sorry, communicating agency to you. It's about genuinely giving you agency. So it's about genuinely putting you in a situation where you do make the decision. It is on you. Like it's not do as I say because I said so. So for example, I'll give you a really simple example. I was having trouble with my son, and I realized there were a few things he had control over day, in his day. I was like, you know what, let's give him back more control. And he became a very different human being because he had now had a sense of control of what was happening in his life, etc. That's a very different Trini way. That's not a Trini way of raising kids. But me giving him a sense of control made a massive difference. There are studies of people who are in seniors' homes. They were suffering from depression, their motivation, etc. They give them a fish to take care of, they give them a plant to take care of. Just having control over something in their work completely changes the mental outlook on the way you approach things. And it's not about communicating that, it's about genuinely giving them that control. And that I think there's a distinction there.
So I guess the old adage, actions speak louder than words,
Oh, yeah,
holds
right
true
on.
in this case.
100%.
What about the intersection between clients' pain points and staff pain points, and the significance in that in a high performing organization?
So here's what I want to say. The most important client is the employees. So for me, if you tell me there are pain points between your clients and your staff, address your staff pain points first. If you
But that's a
address
mental shift and a paradigm shift that some employers have to take, that the most important clients are the employees. I don't get a sense that many organizations that I know or have been a part of have that kind of mindset.
what would be your best guess on why I'm saying that?
It would be because if your employees feel engaged and are engaged, not feel engaged, but are engaged and have a sense of agency through what they're allowed to do and what they're allowed to contribute, then it will read down to more productivity and more profitability and better client engagement. I think that's my general sense of it.
So instead of going trying to solve two problems, you solve one. So let me solve the problem of making sure my employees are well taken care of, they engage, and their problems are resolved. Who then goes and solves the client's problems? It's the employees, right? So the resource allocation is very different. You allocate the resources to make sure that your number one client, who's an employee, is well taken care of, and they will take care of your people. It's why you have great service at like Marriott or Four Seasons. Four Seasons, they talk about we do common things uncommonly well, and they're great stories. There. I have a friend who he's not a friend, but I know he wrote a book and he tells the story of going to Four Seasons, putting the chair by the window because that's where he wanted to be. He's in Vancouver, looking out the window and he's reading. He was there for 3 days. The second day he came back, the staff had put the chair back where it was supposed to be. The third day he went back, the staff had left the chair there. He happened to go back to that same hotel 3 months later. He got a room facing the same side, and when he walked into the room, the chair was facing the window. That is a staff initiative. You can't manage for that. So when you empower your people to make those kind of decisions where they take care of the clients, it becomes a game changer with the companies that you're running, and companies like Four Seasons and Marriott's, etc. They're the exceptional when it comes to client service, and I think a lot of people don't understand that in order for you to have good client service, it starts with servicing the employees.
Yeah, but I guess I see a lot of parallels with companies in Trinidad that do the opposite. And I won't call any name, but a classic example is fast food outlets where the employees seem very disposable. There's a high attrition rate, a high turnover because they don't feel a sense of ownership or value in the company. So then they don't stay or they don't perform.
Yeah. Why do I have to take, at the end of the day, customer service is a hard job. Why am I taking this, choose a word you want, from this person? Why am I putting up with this? Pay me enough for this. I'm up late, etc., etc., etc. Versus, and part of that in some contexts is the companies believe they become complacent and they believe that nobody's going to disrupt them. They believe like we're making money, it doesn't matter, we don't need to invest in service. When I look at some companies in the context you're talking about, I know 20 years ago their service was excellent. Those are the things that got them to where they are today. But somehow, because they have market domination, they've started to let go of the things that made them who they are. There's a great story of that where Starbucks had a similar experience where they were losing that quality of service. And what was the founder? Stuart, I forget his name. Howard something. But anyway, he shut down Starbucks for 3 days. All of Starbucks, every single Starbucks in North America was shut down.
I
And
remember that.
everybody went back
I
to
remember
trading.
that. And the world went into shock.
He just
Hmm.
shut it down, right? First of all, I think it was a great PR move, but that's beside the point. Secondly, he got everybody to know that we were serious about customer service. Starbucks was known for their customer service, and I think
The experience.
the experience, customer experience, and the things that make you great yesterday, the minute you start to lose this thing, you set yourself up, you put yourself to be disrupted, and you're going to be disrupted by somebody you're not paying attention to. And those companies that do that, anytime you start to get complacent, you have to be paranoid that somebody's going to take you over, no matter how big you are.
Well, I guess you say Starbucks is a classic example. It's not coffee, it's coffee. Yeah, yes, they have some proprietary products, but it's the experience. They write your name on the cup. You feel noticed and acknowledged and special. So,
It was my favorite example. So Starbucks were like, um, they would write their name on the cup or whatever, and then I go to Trinidad and I go to rituals, and they spell like Their instead of There, and I kind of, and then like I remember, I remember being like, okay, at least you're trying, but
it
it's
is
kind
what
of
it is.
it's funny.
So, moving now to company vision and blind spots, finding clarity. Now, business students will, business 101 classes will tell you there's a difference between vision and mission statements. Just for the purposes of this podcast, let's go back over, because I know you did it in an earlier podcast, the main difference or differences between a vision and a mission.
So the vision is where you're going. The mission is why you're here. What's your purpose? What's your raison d'être? And the reason that you need to know your vision is you need to get very clear about how we're aligning all of our resources around where we're going. The reason you need to have a solid mission is to go back to employee engagement so that you have a competitive advantage compared to the other guy who's doing something similar to you. I'll give you an example. There's a software company in Toronto that is trying to solve a very interesting health problem in Canada. The founder of this company is attracting some of the most skillful programmers in the country at half the cost of a Shopify, of a Google, of whatever. So what they're doing, what they're making at Google is a lot more. But the reason people are going to this particular startup is because they want to solve this problem. It's a purpose, it's a mission. So what people don't realize is often when you get that mission right, it becomes a talent attractor in a way that you could never understand and never believe. And I think that's the big difference between um, quote unquote um, mission and vision, or vision and mission, is that people don't recognize the big difference that makes in the long term.
What are the general blind spots that people tend to ignore in the vision of a company? What was the how can we get clarity on that?
Well, first of all, they don't have a clear. The vision is not widely shared, widely known, widely believed. So people have a vision, and the executive suite knows it, or two people know it, and they haven't shared it with all of their stakeholders. That's number one. Um, I think that's the biggest blind spot, is having a vision that is clearly articulated, as simple, and everybody can articulate it. I would bet that the next three companies that you interact with, if you ask the employees, what's the vision and mission of this company? They couldn't tell you. They couldn't tell you why they exist, and that's a problem to me. Like, if you
Why
can't
is
show,
it that sense of obscurity? That because one would imagine that that's a basic function when you're starting a company. You know what your vision is, you know where you want to go, or is it the issue of not understanding the main difference in a vision and a mission?
I think we talk about how high achieving companies, the vision is widely shared, widely known, widely believed. Unfortunately, high achieving companies are in the minority. So, to like for example, there's only one Usain Bolt, there's only one Caitlin Clark, there's only those high performers who are willing to do the common things uncommonly well, who are willing to do those things that wake up at 4 in the morning and go to the gym. Those are the people who build excellent companies. And I think after a while, you have people who are not built and cut out like that. They're not doing the things that make you excellent, but yet they want to be excellent, but they're not prepared to put in the work. So, and often the work is very easy because I know a company who we work with where every meeting what they do is they read out their charter. So once a week they have this meeting and they read out their charter. This is the reason we exist as a company, and they do that. Those small things build culture, remind people why we're here. If you're interacting with a client, you know why you're here. You know what your answer to that question is. And most people are not doing those things. They're going towards efficiency and effectiveness. And I think that's which is the organization is a machine metaphor. You are a part that comes into a cog of a machine that turn you on and then you run. But organizations are conversations, and every day people have to have a conversation with themselves of whether or not they're going to show up fully for you or not. And most times people are showing up and giving you their time, but they're not giving you their energy, creativity, and intelligence. And really high achieving companies do the things that people are willing to give you their creativity and their intelligence.
How close should that vision be in terms of sharing it with the employees or and the stakeholders, but also making it a way of life in the company? Is that a difficult thing to do in terms of understanding what the vision is and aligning all the decisions, all the processes, all the protocols, all the procedures inside of that? So every employee or every stakeholder knows what this company is about and where it's going.
So I think that's hard to do, but I think the reason I think that's hard to do is because I think clarity is hard. So what I mean by that is that there's this quote I would have written you a shorter letter if I had more time. So because people don't take the time to be very clear on where they want to go, I think that's what makes it hard. Um, I'm going to change tact a little bit, just because the book is called Strategy to Action. The thing that I find even more problematic is that people may not know the vision, they may not know the mission, but they sure as hell don't know the strategy of the company. And I find that to be more problematic than not knowing the vision and mission, because you're showing up to work and you do not know what the strategy of the company is and how the thing that you're doing today connects to that strategy. How are you helping the company move in that particular direction? And that's a piece that I think is even harder to wrap my head around. And as a result of that, people end up falling into one of three traps. The strategy and the tactics never meet because they haven't set up a systems or process in place where the strategy and tactics are working in tandem with each other. The strategy and tactics collide or work against each other, or they start with tactics and never even look at how what they're doing in the short term is influencing or helping them get to where they want to in the long term. And I think for me, that's where the bigger issue is. It's not necessarily about you can't have a strategy without getting clear on the vision and mission. But to me, I think it's a crazy proposition that people are showing up to work and they couldn't articulate what's the strategy of the company. I think that's crazy. But I have a job.
But that happens very often.
I have a job because people can't do that. So part of what I want to do is I want to make sure that there are very few companies in the world where somebody shows up and they can't articulate the strategy of the company. Everybody knows their strategy and they understand how the 10 things I'm going to do today fit into or help us fulfill that strategy.
How should a company, what metrics should a company employ in terms of analyzing? Because there are many growing concerns who may have missed the boat where this is concerned. Analyze their vision to align with what it really should be, because very often visions statements are misplaced, they're nebulous, they lack clarity, and they miss the boat in terms of pointing the company in the direction or the organization in the direction that they really want to go in their minds.
So what's the question?
What metrics should they use to analyze whether or not they have a clear vision?
So this is where we go back to this like organization as conversations and not machines, right? So in a machine, I can measure every single thing and tell you like this knob needs to be X millimeter. And we go down to millimeters, even smaller than that. In some instances, it's like micro stuff.
Microns.
In when it comes to certain things around strategy and certain things around building culture, it becomes a qualitative metric, and it's not a quantitative metric. So the metric might be like I can only use sports, and I hate using sports analogies. But you're playing football or soccer with somebody, and like, man, we were clicking today. I felt like we were in groove. I felt like we were in flow. So the more people are able to express things like, hey, I went to Dirk today and I really enjoyed stuff. I felt like I was on flow. I felt like I was just on the edge of my capability. I felt like I was being challenged just enough, not too hard, not too much. Like those are the metrics you want to be looking for, not the metrics of did we sell X number, data. Because when you engage people in flow and you engage people in their passion and what they like doing and they feel engaged, the sales numbers will come. You have to have the sales numbers there. I'm not saying
do people get that it's those output or throughput elements are as a result of having the right vision and the right engagement and the right conversations in place?
The vast majority of people. So, for example, I was in a meeting one time and people said, the person was like, the only strategy we need to do right now is sell more units. And we need to sell 20% more units. And I said, I'd just like to point out that that's an outcome. So 20% more units is an outcome of something we do, which has to be our strategy. And this person is a very seasoned business person, consultant, all of these trappings of that. And I think a vast majority of people don't understand three basic things. What's the outcome we're going for? What is the strategy of the company? And what are the tactics that are going to help us execute on that strategy? Those are just three columns that if we could get that right, it makes a massive difference in the organization. But people don't understand that. And it's why I don't like the word strategy. In my work, when I work with people, I talk about What are the wolf-like activities and what are the eagle-like activities? The eagle-like activities are your strategy-like activities. What are the things that are 30, 40,000 feet? Your wolf activities are things that are execution. And the reason I use that word is if I say, hey, I just came off a call and I said, well, we need to hire a wolf here. Everybody in that team knew exactly what I was talking about. And one of the points I was making is we're not in a desperate situation. So we don't have to hire the best person of this pool. If we don't like anybody in this pool, we can keep looking because that's not the situation. We need a wolf for this particular position. Right? And that's what we mean by strategy. You have to take that big strategy, the strategy of where we're going in the organization, and then bring that down to that strategy of we will wait. We will wait until we find the right person to fill that position. And that's part of your strategy. And that's how your strategy ends up. That's what your strategy ends up looking like in action. And if I have done that, if I've helped people take their strategy, take their strategy and turn that into tactics, that alone would transform and has transformed quite a number of companies that I work with.
The book is called Strategy to Action. Of course, the author is Dr. Keita Demming. Keita, if someone wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do so?
Visit keitademming.com. You can find out all about me there. Check out my podcast. Check out my book. You can buy books there. Somebody just bought 50 books recently today, which surprised me. So that's great.
That's good.
Thank you. But if you wanna find me, Google Keita Demming. So thankfully, there's one Keita Demming. My parents knew that Keita was an SEO friendly name when they
that many years ago.
many years ago. So they had that much foresight. So yeah.
I guess they were having the right conversations. Keita, as usual, a wonderful conversation.
Thank you, sir.
See you
Have a
again.
wonderful day.